Hi Cancer, welcome to your August 2018 Astro Update. It's Rena here. So Cancer, this is really a nice time for you money-wise because as the month begins, the Sun, which creates a certain emphasis or focus, is in your second house of earned income in the sign of Leo. And the other thing that is important to note is that there is a Mercury retrograde also happening as the month begins in the same house. And so if you notice from the end of July, and I'm recording this earlier in the month, to August 19th, during this retrograde period, that there is some kind of, confusion or slow down in your money situation. Realize that it's temporary. Don't panic. Don't act like, oh my God, what's happening? I have found out that this is one of the most useful aspects of astrology because when you can see how some of these planets, Mercury retrograde, Jupiter retrograde, can affect your bottom line financially, it really kind of takes all of the pressure off because you realize that it's not going to last forever. Sometimes we tend to get a little carried away here. So there might be something that you're rethinking about the money that you earn. That might be how it plays out for you, where you're kind of like crunching the numbers and saying, is this really the best I can do? Or, where is the money going to? You might be even saying that. So you're going over your finances. Let's put it that way. But the Sun is there, and that can lead to you having creative ideas on maybe how to make more money. As the month begins, Venus, which is that ruler of the second house, is in your third house in a friendly angle to you called a sextile in the sign of Virgo. Venus in the third house can actually indicate making some kind of profit, financial profit from any kind of communication. This is the house of teaching and learning, so there may be some developments. For instance, if you are a professor, you may get some kind of profit from the teaching that you're doing, or maybe it even has to do with job prospects. And then on the 6th, Venus goes into Libra, and that's your fourth house of home and family. By the way, when Venus is in the third house, that could relate to siblings. And in the fourth house, it could relate to a parent, particularly the mother. So you may be making nice with your family of origin during the month of August. And this would be particularly significant if you've been on the outs with them. Now, I don't know how many Cancer people would actually be on the outs with their family because usually you are very family-oriented. So the very next day on the 7th, Uranus turns retrograde in Taurus, another sign that's at a friendly angle or a sextile, in this case to you, and it's going the opposite direction. So this is in the 11th house that this sextile is occurring. And so when, Uranus in mid-May went into the sign of Taurus. It, has like a 7-year or so transit and just entered Taurus recently in a very early degree of Taurus. And when it goes retrograde, well, let me just say, when Uranus entered your 11th house, this could have really, and maybe it hasn't happened yet, but during the next 7 years, your social circle may really change radically, Cancer. You may get involved in some very unusual groups, And who knows, maybe some of them will be related to astrology or other topics that connect to, like star seeds, Lemuria, lost continents, or who knows, things like that. I was thinking of Urantia. And other things that may connect with the 11th house are like, I would say like humanitarian concerns or political concerns, where there's kind of that utopian angle, because the 11th house is a house that Aquarius rules, and you have the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, in its own house. So it kind of doubles down on some of those things. But in the sign of Taurus, there's always that connection to the material world. So any kind of idealism is backed with the tangible, So how that plays out for you, I don't know. Maybe you join a commune. And anyway, when Uranus goes retrograde, things can go kind of haywire with that commune, or whatever it is that the 11th house represents to you. By the way, the 11th house is also the house of hopes and wishes. So you may have some kind of crazy dreams that are atypical for your personality type, that you just have, they've taken hold of you. And you're just like, I've got to do this. Now, something that just jumped into my mind is the idea of a tiny house. And I guess maybe I'm projecting myself into this because that's one of my obsessions, is having a tiny house. But I was thinking about you because you're a Cancer and you rule the house of home and family. So something that has to do with real estate, but kind of quirky, kind of like offbeat, a little bit unconventional. And so basically, things that you may be trying to accomplish have a tendency to be kind of erratic, like maybe they don't go as smoothly when Uranus is retrograde. But I don't think that, because it's an outer planet, I don't know that this is going to affect you all that much. Maybe if you have like a planet in your chart that is in a conjunction with this at the moment or something. But in any case, I just wanted to make you aware of that, because a few days after that, on the 11th, we have a new moon, but a solar eclipse, a very powerful new moon, at 18 degrees of Leo in the second house of earned income. And so there's new beginnings with the money that you're making. But the funny thing about this is that it's during a Mercury retrograde. So it's kind of weird to have new moons during Mercury retrogrades, and also Mars is still retrograding until the end of the month. So it's kind of like, it might be a mental new beginning, but it might not pan out in terms of what actually happens in August. This may be something, whatever opportunities come your way in the subsequent couple of weeks. Actually, because it's a solar eclipse, we might be talking about months afterwards. It will probably be more in September and beyond than in August, because so much is kind of like the shadow period and all that jazz. So on the very next day after that solar eclipse, Mars goes into Capricorn. During this retrograde that it's been on, starting in Aquarius, going back into Capricorn, which happens to be your 7th house of committed partnership. And I thought to myself, the War of the Roses. Because when Mars is in Aquarius, so Mars, basically we can ascertain that Mars went retrograde back in late June at around, I believe it was 9 degrees of Aquarius or so, 9 or 10 degrees. And it stayed in Aquarius until August 12th. And it went back into Capricorn, back into your 7th house. So when it was in Aquarius, it was in your 8th house. What is the 8th house? Sex, death, and other people's money. But I'm focused on the money angle. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are dealing with an inheritance. And this is why the Venus energy is in your 3rd and 4th houses this month. Venus can also bring money with her, so you may gain through siblings and your mother. Maybe this has to do with a father's estate or some other relative. And you and your siblings and your mother may be all on the same page. And there's like 2 families even for some of you. And the other family, although I don't know, because if your mother's involved, that might be her husband. So who knows? But anyway, that's going on. And when Mars goes into that 7th house again, it's like bringing up an old battle that might have been involving other people's money, but the 7th house can be the courtroom. And maybe somebody reopened something, or it went to probate, so that created another battle. And actually, this should resolve itself by the end of the month, because Mars goes direct on the 27th of August at 28 degrees of Capricorn. But that doesn't mean that that's when everything will just be wrapped up, because remember that it's going to take some time for Mars to go back to the degree it was before it retrograded. And in that time, that may still tell the story until the period of time of whenever that is, when Mars goes out of its shadow. I think it's sometime in October, actually, but I'm not sure about that. I still think that you may feel a sense of forward movement at the very end of August. And there's possibility that some of you, this is connected to a marriage. And perhaps you were arguing about splitting the what do you call it when it's a marriage situation? It's not an estate. Well, whatever, the shared resources between the two of you, how you split it, if there's alimony. Is there still alimony? And what's the male equivalent of alimony? Who knows? But anyway, you may be kind of opening up an old battle in that area. And definitely for some Cancers and Capricorns, the marriage sector has been taking a beating. I would say especially Cancers, because the 7th house is going to have Pluto in it. So maybe Capricorns are going to fare better, because they're going to have, they just had that solar eclipse in their 7th house in Cancer. So I think this is more of a Cancer issue. So what else is happening? So Mercury goes direct on the 19th in that 2nd house, and then things should start to kind of sort themselves out. If you've been feeling like your money situation has been a little hinky, everything should be kind of like getting back on track. And you may may come to a decision about something. Maybe this is even about the type of work that you're doing and how you're getting paid. Some of you may be like kind of doing a lot of soul searching in that regard, or doing even like research. What kind of job makes this kind of money? On the 23rd, the sun goes into Virgo, and this is that third house, which you had Venus in. And so this, with the sun in the third house, you may be kind of maybe you're like going to be working in education. And whether you're aspiring to become a teacher or you are actually focusing your energy on some kind of a teaching assignment or a writing assignment or internet-based work, there is a lot of energy being poured into that, and it's very positive in nature. This may be a creative time for you when it comes to writing projects. And then on the 26th, there's a full moon at 3 degrees of Pisces, a fellow water sign, and this is your 9th house, which has to do with the higher mind. So I get this teaching vibe and this learning vibe with you. For some Cancers, this may be the ending of some kind of a course of studies. And this may be related to your college degree. Maybe you're finally getting that diploma, even though August is usually the time when school begins, not ends. But, nowadays there's all kinds of variations of the semesters. But also, this may be a time when you're ending some kind of a long distance vacation or a trip, and maybe you're combining business with pleasure. Perhaps you're finally realizing a dream to manifest some kind of a trip where you can spend time abroad. But there's like a real expansive feeling to this situation, because the 9th house is the God house, and all of the broad types of ways that we think about life. So whether it's the ways we think about different societies, which we can observe when we travel far from our homes, or whether it's courses that we explore at a university, or whether it is some kind of religious belief or practice. This can be a time of great expansion for you, because the moon, when it's full, is at its height of power, and just its abundance, or what's another term, like its apex, the culmination of all of what has come before. And the other thing about this too is that this could even be a realization that you have about something spiritual, because the full moon isn't in Pisces and it isn't that 9th house, so it's kind of a double spiritual vibe to it. And maybe this has to do with your beliefs. And then on the 27th, Mars goes direct at 28 degrees of Capricorn, like I stated, in that 7th house of committed partnership, where Pluto is, where Saturn is. So you get Mars, Saturn, and Pluto in the 7th house. Yikes. And like I said, relationships of the committed variety can be kind of like challenged with these very intense planets all crowded into this house. And it's really going to require a lot of Cancers to be able to see another person's point of view, because you may feel like you're the one under attack, because these planets are opposing you. and they are requiring something of you to kind of like not be extreme about what each planet represents to you. For instance, with this opposition between your Sun and Mars, there may be some kind of issue of anger that arises related to how you are more assertive and you feel like you have the right to express yourself within that committed partnership. Cancer is a sign that, because it's a water sign, may sometimes be indirect in dealing with personal relationships. For instance, if somebody has Mars in Cancer, they may even be passive aggressive. And when they try to get their way, they do so with indirect means and even manipulation. So you may develop a lot more sense of your own personal power at this time, and especially if you've been going through some old battles, you might finally like snap to it, because remember, you're coming from the solar eclipse in July, and you're also going to have your North Node be in your sign come November. So you're really kind of coming into a time where maybe this is like a certain special period of time for you to experience. I don't know if you call it an energy upgrade, or it's more like this is like destiny for you, more than perhaps other times in your life when things are much more open-ended. You may find that your life is like, and I think of it as a positive thing, almost like luck being the norm, but it should be in your favor, I would think, because we're talking about the North Node, not the South Node. But yeah, so this is a very interesting month for you, Cancer, when it all comes down to it. I think that ultimately, though, you're going to like it because of the second house energy. It should be profitable for you. Even though with the Mercury retrograde, it may feel like things are a little bit up in the air, I think that they settle down and you also come to a decision regarding your money as well. Okay, that's what I have for you, Cancer. If you like this type of look at some of the transits, this is what I do in personal readings, and I take it out a year and I look at some of the trends in certain areas of your life. And what I also do is I kind of see what makes you tick, which is kind of fun, because I look at some of your inner planets and stuff like that, and I say, well, this is how, and I also look at what houses your planets are in, because that can give me a lot of insight into what is important to you. So I will post a link to that particular reading below, but I hope that you have a wonderful August. Take care of yourselves. Bye.